Welcome back to FastGadgets. So today what I'm going to do is for one of the lecture series that I'm working on for one of my schools, I need to have a Windows 8 virtual machine, and I'm going to put Office on there. So I have just installed the latest version of VirtualBox, and I was going to go ahead and create a virtual machine, and hopefully this will work well. I have had some problems in the past, but I've had pretty good success. The one I'm going to do, whenever I do a virtual machine, I usually do a 32-bit. So I'm going to do Windows 8.1 32-bit, and I'll just call this Windows 8.1. And let's see what we've got here. Well, it wants to know how much RAM to give it. I think... Huh. I wonder why it's showing 8 megabytes. Select the amount of RAM in megabytes to be allocated to the virtual machine. The recommended memory size is 1024 megabytes. That is really strange. Well, let's see. I actually cannot see what I'm typing, but apparently I was able to type 2048 megabytes. Let's see if I can make this display larger. I can, but no joy making this bigger. So these are some of the quirky problems you'll see in, well, Linux in general. This is in Fedora, of course, and it's 24. Not exactly perfect display of the fonts. And just for those of you who don't know, I'm running KDE Plasma right now. So I'm going to click Next. I've got 2048 in there. And I do need it to create a virtual hard disk for me. I don't want 25. I'm going to click Create. I'll use VDI. If I think I'm ever going to use this with VMware, I would create a VMDK, but I've been using VirtualBox now almost exclusively. Do I want to dynamically allocate it? Yes, that means that the drive will expand as needed so it doesn't take up too much room. And finally, yeah, well, I'm going to go much larger since it's going to be a dynamically expanding drive. I really don't see a reason not to go larger. So I'm going to put in 100 gigabytes, and basically as it gets larger with the install and whatever I have in the virtual machine, it'll need more storage room. So let's see if I can figure out. I always have a problem doing this for some reason. Of course, it's been a while since I built a VM. So let's check out storage. I need to add, maybe it'll ask me when I turn it on. I always forget. What I need to do, of course, is use my ISO. Kernel driver not installed. Yeah, this is the problem I see quite often. Kernel driver VBox DRV is probably not loaded. You may not have kernel driver installed for kernel. That is running. Wow. Open source these days. DNF install akmod. What do you know? I happen to have a command line open. So I'll clear the screen. And let's see if we can do this. It should work. Dash virtual box kernel devil dash $ parens uname -r. So I'm pretty sure I have kernel devil installed, which is used to compile the kernel driver. I'm hoping this will work. Yeah, it says it's already installed, so let's do akmods systemctl restart system d-modules load service. Load.service not found. Oh, go back to up arrow. System-modules system d dash modules dot load dot service. I'm terrible at typos. Alright, so it says kmods exist. Alright, so I'm going to close VirtualBox and reopen it and cross my fingers and hope for the best. Since I'm going to use VirtualBox a lot, I'm going to add it to my favorites. Relaunch it, and I'm thinking this is not going to work, but we'll try anyway. Woo! Getting better. Will it work? It actually worked! Yay! Just so you know, if you're running Linux, you do need to have Secure Boot turned off in your BIOS. So if you are a UEFI BIOS, Secure Boot must be disabled. So let's see if we can find out. I'll work on the view in just a second. I have to scale it. Well, I'll scale it for you now. What the heck? Okay. No bootable medium found. System halted. Well, we need to get some, don't we? Let's go with devices, optical drive, choose disk image, and on my external here, there we go. Thank you, Slowpoke. In my ISO images, I've got Windows 8.1 x86, so I'm going to use the 32-bit version. And then we're going to tell the machine we want to do a reset. So this VM that you're seeing is a premium example of how the scaling really fails on virtual machine software. VMware really does not do a good job at all for high DPI displays and scaling. It's just miserable. At least with this one I have the scale factor, and it's decent. Now you can use scaled mode, but I found it's problematic, so I usually just go with scaling and just do 200% and it's good enough. Later I can make the font larger and do whatever I want inside the VM, so right now I'm not going to worry about it. So I'll do next. It's going to ask me, do you want to install it? I actually do, so I'm going to do install now. Yeah, if you try to run these commands, you're going to find out that you're going to basically, they will not work if Secure Boot is running. So again, if you're a UEFI BIOS, make sure you get rid of Secure Boot. Disable it. So I'm going to put in my key code and then I'll be right back. So we're back. I'm going to accept the license terms and click next. And we're going to do, I guess we're going to say the upgrade. So it's saying no, this is an upgrade. Let's go back. See if we can do custom. There we go. Drive 0, unallocated space, use it. And we're off to the races. So again, I'm going to do this lecture series, and I'm showing how to use Windows 8 in conjunction with Office 2013, and I figured I might as well go ahead and record the lecture series because I do have some students that have some special needs, so normally we would have a note taker do that. And what we're going to do is I'm going to create the video while I'm actually walking through the lectures, and then I'll host them on YouTube so that anybody really can see them, but students as well. And I figured this would be a good way to do it. I could do them here on the virtual machine. I can do them while I'm in the classroom, whichever I need to do. You would think there's not a real demand for Windows 8, but let's see what we can find out about which operating systems are in use. So I was looking at this article on Wikipedia, and it's pretty interesting. So despite Windows 10 really trying to push and literally just kill and take over the market, look at these percentages according to this article. Windows 10 is at 17.43%, XP still at 10%, Windows 7 is the lion's share of the installed base. Windows 8, if you consider Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, we're looking at what, 8, 9, 10, about 11.5, 12%, and Mac OS X about 6%. So you know, Windows 8 is still being used. Corporate America, once they tend to get on an operating system, they do not move off of it very often, which actually makes sense if they have to pay for the upgrade. And I realize there is a free upgrade for consumers, but I haven't confirmed whether or not that's true for corporations. But yeah, Microsoft is really on a mission to get the world on Windows 10 as their installed base, almost to the point of using downright subterfuge. Now check this out. We've got some Windows Vista, 1.35%, and we got a few others here. We still have some Windows 2000, 0.02%, FreeBSD, 0%. Apparently it's less than 0.1%, so it's pretty low. Linux is up here at its usual 2%, and some, you know, with the complication of Linux, of installing it, well, I guess the install isn't too bad. Software compatibility and using it and understanding it are difficult for the average user. So many people do not want to switch to Linux, but I've had wonderful luck with Linux, and using Fedora, again, all open source. I really feel like I don't have to worry too much about being monitored, so I feel more confident with purely open source software. And I do know that, you know, open source isn't necessarily benevolent, or at least the companies that use and maintain open source. There's been a lot of friction in some of the companies, like Firefox, for example, or Mozilla rather. So things aren't always perfect. I really like doing virtual machines when you're on an SSD, so I'm letting this VM install right onto my SSD. If I'm going to use a virtual machine frequently, I put it on the solid state drive that's internal to this system. For me, it's just much easier accessing it when it's a frequent thing as opposed to having it on a portable drive. But normally I do keep the majority of my virtual machines on separate disks. Now this one that I have in here right now, it does not have a whole lot of VMs. I've just got a couple here, but normally if a virtual machine is not going to be used very often, I will go ahead and put it onto some type of external drive. It just makes more sense to me. So it looks like we're wrapping up the install. This system is a i7, 2 physical cores, 4 logical cores. I believe it's the 4510Y. Or is it the 4510U? I really can't remember. It's the Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro 13.6, but you can see how fast it installed. It really did quite well. Let's give this a name. We're going to do Windows 8. I can't use a period. 8.1 VM. Next. I'm going to do customize just so you can see some of the settings that are available. You've connected to a network. Do you want to find PCs? No, I really don't. Not for this machine. This is what I like about Windows 8. I can decide what I want to do with updates. I like to run it when I need it. I'll leave Smart Screen on and do not track. I don't really need to check for online solutions at this point. I don't need compatibility lists. And let's see, yeah, that's already off. Send to Microsoft, all off by default. Big difference when you compare it to Windows 10, isn't it? Share info with Microsoft and others, no. Page prediction, no. Let apps use my name and account picture, no. Advertising ID, no. No. I guess I'll leave that one on for active protection. Now I already have an account, so I'm hoping I can just log into it and make my life easier. But you know what? I'm realizing I had to change my password. So I'm going to log in. I'll do that right now, and I'll be right back. Here's the weird thing. Your Microsoft account is not the same password as the account you use to log into a system. So I'm just going to create a local account. It's just so much easier for me because basically I'm going to put excuse me, Office 2013 on here, and that's the only thing I'm really going to be using anyway. I'm really frustrated by that because the passwords are not identical. So I can log into my Windows machines using the login password for the login account, but there's a completely different password for the actual management of the Microsoft account. And they wonder why people don't like Windows and get confused by it. It's ridiculous, let's be honest. You should only have one password. It should be straightforward by the book. So now it's going through installing all the mostly useless applications that I will never use. The Windows Metro interface apps, which are, let's be honest, ew. The first thing I always do with Windows 8 is install a start menu. There's some open source tools, so I'll do that. I don't even remember the name of the start tool that I normally use, but I'm going to install one of those, taking care of a few things. So let's do a quick search while we're waiting. And you can see how fast that virtual machine installed while I'm doing a screen capture, while I'm working and searching and doing things in the system. So let's go ahead and do a open source Windows 8 start menu. I always forget the one I use, Classic Shell. This is a really great tool. So once Windows gets booted up here, I'm going to go ahead and install that classic tool. How many of you have used this? It's really quite nice. I will say this for Windows 8. You can agree or disagree, but once you have the classic shell installed, Windows 8 actually performs, in my opinion, much better than Windows 10. It has a lot less overhead and garbage than Windows 10, and I'm not saying Windows 10 is a bad performer. I think Windows 10 is actually great as far as the interface. Talking with my students, I really feel like the touchscreen interface is way better than Android, and I can't say really with iOS products, so with an iPhone or an iPad, but as far as Android goes, the touch interface much more intuitive, much better in Windows 8 and Windows 10 than Android could ever have hoped for. I'm really hoping that Microsoft has success with the Windows 8 touch interface and Windows 10 touch interface, because it's really innovative. Initially, maybe the first half hour you're using it, it's a little bit confusing because we're used to Android. But once you have used Windows 10 and Windows 8, so I have a little tablet that I use, and once you use the touchscreen interface in Windows 8 and Windows 10, you keep doing things using the touch interface. It's really funny, and you just get used to it. So let's do. I'll just tell it to go ahead, and I don't even know why I said ask me later. I'm not paying attention at all, am I? So let's do a quick search for classic shell, and we'll just cruise over to downloads, and we would like to get the latest version in English. I'm just going to go ahead and run it. I really don't need it in the downloads, even though I think it puts it there anyway. Next, agree to their license. It is fully open source. I'm a big proponent of open source, as you can tell. I really only use Windows when I need to support it for some type of lecture or a corporate training program I'm going to do or something like that. And I'm going to say yes, and it's going to do its install. And I just realized I've actually been running off battery all this time now. Isn't that awesome? Kudos to Linux. So I'm going to say yes, and I'll click the menu. Okay, so it's going to give me, I'm going to say, I always say replace the start button. I like the pretty arrow looking button. And then I'll say OK. And now I've got a relatively intuitive shell here. So I've got Windows 8 all set up. Whole process took, what, 20 minutes? Pretty straightforward. If you enjoyed the video, thank you for watching. I'll be back again. We'll do an office install in here and get everything set up. Hope to see you again. I always appreciate your support.